everybody's having a good morning and afternoon now. This is the first, in case you don't know who we are, we're the Oklahoma Native American Church of Inner Light. We're outside of Hayden, Alabama, in the woods and the beautiful trees and springs. And so we work with plant medicine, and I wasn't going to bring that up today, but I heard Sherry talking, to some people, so I wanted to bring that up and talk about the need for that in the world right now. So there's been an infection, which we all can feel, that creates fear. And when fear drives us, we make bad decisions. We don't think clearly. We get that fight or flight chemical in us, and it makes us get all scatterbrained and, start rushing around to try to get it done. And we mean well, and we're trying as hard as we can. But what that chemical, the brain just malfunctions, and then the whole system malfunctions. So this is brought on by what people, have called for years generational trauma or generational curses or generational sin. But now science has found what it is, and it's called epigenetics, which is when the DNA is passed from one generation to the other, any trauma that's gone on in that bloodline since it started leaves skin tags on that DNA. And then it goes to your children and their children and their children and their children until somebody breaks it. And that's been the question, how do we break this? How do we understand unconditional love? So that's what the title of this sermon is, The Unconditional Love of God. There's so much, confusion. Hang on, I told people I would record this, so I don't want to miss anymore.
Let's start from the beginning.
I'm going to
I'll just start from the, I'll start from the, oh, okay.
There's an infection called fear. It's part of my work.
Okay, so we were talking about epigenetics and the unconditional love of God and generational curses and how they can be broken, where science and religion, world religion that people think, was brought by God, the pure God, the creator, the pure light, the pure love that cannot do anything else but that, So the title of this is The Unconditional Love of God. So what I'm going to do is there's so many religions out there, so many different teachings that tell us, this is God, that's God, you can do this, you can't do that, this is a sin, that's a sin. But what they don't understand is that sin isn't something. Sin is something alive. It is something that's a life force that shouldn't be here. And it was brought on by the not understanding of unconditional love. So I'm sure if any of you have children, you dealt with this. You will love your child the best that you can, because that's how I believe that God shows us first a little bit of that unconditional love, because we don't really understand it before that, But when we have a child, there's something that bonds us to that child. Most of us, some people, are numb to that, and that's from their traumas, and things that have happened in their bloodline. But most people, they feel a connectedness, whether they, understand it or not. They're going to try to do whatever they can for their child, But the child sometimes receives that love, and other times it gets angry at the parent. And I know God is referred to in different religions as Father and Mother, but really God is all of that in one, and all of everything in one. And so there's several different sermons that we're going to go into over the next couple of months that, I've got planned out to do this a little at a time so we don't sit here for 5 or 6 hours, talking. But I've got some things that I wrote. And actually, I thought I was going to use this as notes. But as I read it this morning, God is telling me it needs to be said word by word. So, here it is. Unconditional love for others is a foreign concept to the natural-minded human being. We have a natural, almost unconditional love for our own selves as an individual, but rarely do we have the same feeling for everyone around us. In the natural state of mind, we do love other people. We even have a very strong love and develop attachments to certain people, our spouses, our children, our friends. This love we feel for others is primarily based on how those people impact our lives and make us have good feelings at ourselves. We love them because they make us feel good, and that's natural love. Everybody's looking for that, someone to care for them, someone to love them, truly love them. And people will say, well, I guess I'm going to keep speaking here. The unconditional love of God is something very different. It is alive. It is healing and life-giving. There is nothing that anyone could ever do in all eternity that could cause God's love for them to cease. Nothing. And that's it, period. Nothing. Therefore, unconditional love is God's only nature. Only nature. So I want you to settle with that for a minute. We live in this world. We see all this hurt. Okay? John tells us in scriptures, and just by the way, if you didn't know, we do believe in Jesus Christ, but not in the way that the world teaches it in fundamental Christianity, where you have this rule set and you're going to go to hell if you don't follow it. That's not what Christ was saying at all. That's a complete fabrication and just really a intentional damaging thing that was started a long time ago, and we'll get into that later. So I just wanted to make people understand that, because when I say Jesus Christ, in some places people will close their ears off because of how much they've been torn down by that name. They've been taught this awful lie. So human beings, on the other hand, sometimes decide to stop loving people. We even go so far as to use the term "I hate" when speaking about someone they have professed unconditional love for at some point in their life. How is this possible? I don't understand, right? How can we have unconditional love for people at some point? And then the next moment or day or month or year, we can feel this hatred, over things for the same person. It makes no sense. Because this is why, as natural-minded human beings, we do not have a true understanding of the term unconditional love. The word love in the English language is used to imply several different degrees of affection we feel about different things or people in our lives. There are different types of love, though. We only have that one word, love, in the English language to try to describe what we need. Okay. We say, "I love my wife," and then we say, "I love cheeseburgers." These are two very different types of love, but we don't have any kind of differentiation in that. So they're very different types of emotions. Yet in the English language, we only have the word of love to describe this feeling. In various other languages, there are different terms for these different types of love. In the Hebrew tradition, the culture Jesus Christ was born into, the highest form of love is called agape. That is the unconditional love of the Creator that only the Creator is able to give you. Only. You cannot have it in any other way. You have to get to know your Creator. You know? The natural-minded person is incapable of feeling this overwhelming unconditional love for others, even for their own selves. Okay, that's all I have written. So, how do we figure that out? You know? Oh, we should silence mine too. Just a reminder. That's something I've learned to go with the flow about that thing we were talking about things creating anxiety. Everything happens right on time. There's not any mistakes or any accidents. But we can't see that, right? Because we're in this anxious mind and we're trying to make it happen our way. But when you start to understand unconditional love and that your Creator is that, it brings this whole new joyful feeling in you that removes fear. And it's not like it removes all of your fear at one time. You know, we live in this place that's full of just horrible darkness. If we were to be taken from where we are in the natural mind straight to where God is, we would go insane here. Because we wouldn't be able to deal with all this evil and stuff, and it would destroy us emotionally. And it's destroying God. Ever since He started this thing with space-time, and we'll get into that later, you know, we're getting involved in scientific things. I'm probably about to go back to school and study astrophysics, and I want to know what's going on out there because I know that this is God's language, you know. And I read a book by a rabbi several years ago, and he said that, you know, religion thinks that science is something evil, and science thinks that religion is wrong, and they're always doing this, you know, like they cannot get through. But if we can understand that we're all looking at the same thing as long as we're looking for the truth. What is the truth? If we don't have walls up that say, well, my doctrine says this, and I'm not going past that, then we can let those things fall and we can go through those veils and we can see what's real. But it takes time. The problem is we've been taught that we already know it. Since we were little kids, we were put in a religion and told this is how it is. And that's how it is. And you better, this is just how it is. I grew up Southern Baptist. And my mother never took me to church that much because she saw through it way early. My dad too. But, you know, that's the tradition and it's all around here, right? You know, everywhere you go, you can't get away from it. You know, somebody's going to tell you you're going to hell, you know. So they just don't get it, you know. So we get stuck in those mind frames. And they can't see past it. And Christ said that their leaders that were teaching these doctrines were the blind leading the blind. And they both fall in a hole of darkness. And neither one of them know what's going on. And so there are different levels of this priesthood. You know, he talked about the blind leading the blind. And then later on, some of his followers talked about the wolves in sheep's clothing. So these doctrines were written according to another one of his followers, are doctrines of demons or darkness, things that want to suck the love out of you so you will hate everything in life and you will fall into depression and you will get hooked on drugs or something and you will die so that you will never understand it, you know. And they want you to think when this body dies that you die with it and you have this time right now to choose. And they're right. I mean, we do need to choose now. We're only in the eternal moment. You know, we can't get away from it. We can talk about the past and the future, but we're always right here. You know, and science calls that the current 3 seconds. So the past is before that, and, you know, the future is whatever's after that, but you're always inside this 3 seconds, right? You know, it's okay. He's just feeling. So, you know, we have to ask God who you are ourselves. No matter what we've been taught, no matter what we think we know, we have to go and break our pride and say, if I want to know if you're real or who you are, you have to show me yourself, because I'm tired of all of this. And I'm just going to say, forget it. And you have to mean it right here. And then God will show himself, himself, itself, herself, you know, whatever we want. It's all the same. You know, the Bible uses father as a term to just title the, the one that loves you. You know, it's your father is supposed to love you unconditionally. Your mother is supposed to love you unconditionally, you know. So we have to get ourselves into the eternal moment and not be thinking about what's happening, you know, later, based on what happened in the past, because there's absolutely no truth to that. You know, we have now to move forward. You know, we can't think about the past, because that's causing those chemicals to come out, those cortisol and adrenaline, fight or flights, and malfunctioning our system, and making us not think, and then just go into more upsetness, and we can't see what's right in front of us. You know, I mean, God's always right in front of you with his hand, waiting for you to see. So I want to talk just a little bit about this hell aspect. Okay, so Christ did talk about eternal hell fire. That's what he said. That's how he would say it. So in the Bible, in other places it talks about fire, and mainly the New Testament I'm talking about, because, you know, I believe in the love of Christ, you know, and I don't believe the whole Bible is the infallible word. I believe that it has been, you know, had other things injected in it, and it has things there because the church has been in control of it for so long. It makes no sense for us to think that God would make that his perfect word, but everything else is off, you know, and there. So we have to look with love. Christ said that if anyone wills to do God's will truly, that he or she will know whether something is from love or not, because of the vibration and the frequency that it gives off. It will, if it makes you cringe with fear, it's not God. Unless you're an evil person and you know you're harming people intentionally. Okay, and that's another sermon there. So, you know, we have to understand what unconditional love is, to find life here, to find peace. One of my brothers one time told me that peace to him, you know, and heaven, salvation to him was inner peace. Not being in turmoil all the time. You know, not being upset about how things are going to work out, or if he's going to have what he needs, or if, you know, that's all of us, right? You know, we run around in that natural mind. But Christ said to be like the birds of the air. You know, they don't do any of that. They just get up in the morning, they fly off their branch, and there's the food, and they pick it up and come back, and they have no anxiety about it. And then Paul, you know, later on, one of his followers said to be anxious for nothing, but in all of your thoughts, make your requests known to God, because he will give them to you, because he loves you so much that he wants you to have this joyful life. He doesn't want you walking around fearful and upset and thinking that he's the punisher. So this eternal hellfire, bringing it back there. Fire is intensity of the Spirit of God, you know, because we're baptized with the Holy Spirit, and fire is what it says, you know. That means intensity. I'm going to go and I'm going to tell people this, and that's what they're supposed to be doing out there on these mission trips. They're supposed to be really telling people about this unconditional love that is God, that can save them from all of that fear of what they tell us is you're going to go into hell and burn and you're never, ever, 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 ever going to get out. And God's just going to turn his back on you and say, you know what? I'm going to forget you. That's ridiculous. You know, could you forget one of your children and just pretend like they never existed? Love cannot do that. It can't. So when you're doing bad in your life, when you're sick, because you know you are doing bad, you know, because sin is consciously doing things to harm on purpose, okay? Consciously. You know, when you do that, you create hell inside yourself because you always know that you deserve judgment. You deserve some punishment. And so punishment makes you feel like, oh, I'm in trouble, you know, but I'm going to keep doing this because I know what I want and I have pride and I want what I want, right? No, we have to let that go and say, God, I want you, not me. You know, tell me how to be loved. Truly be loved. And if we do that, God will do it. God will cleanse that hate and that sorrow, whatever is connected to that. But we have to be serious. We can't play with God. You know, God knows your heart. And when it's ready to change, that hardness around it is cracked enough that it can shatter, then you say, I want to know, and out of just total brokenness. And then you might be in that hell of darkness. Even like I said, we work with medicines. So when you work with these medicines, these plant medicines, this is turning on your brain. We find this from science now. And he said, I'm going back, sorry I'm going back and forth, but this is just how it works sometimes. Going back to this rabbi. He said that the new sciences were the new scripture. It's new information that we haven't even ever on the earth, you know. And it's the language of the Creator. It's telling us how everything is connected with geometry and natural physics and, you know, all of the, you know, multiverse and, you know, all of that, the quantum physics. That's what's so interesting in getting into the quantum world. Everything behaves differently than here. And they can't understand it. Like just the other day, there was something that happened about a week ago it started maybe. And there was these electromagnetic field disruptions that I haven't heard about what the science world is thinking about it right now, but they don't know what happened. They have no idea, and they're trying to figure out, was there an earthquake? And I don't know, this is just God just telling me to say this. So what's going on? Well, I know what happened, but we'll talk about that. Strong spiritual movement of the white light that is not part of the code. So everything's coded in this place. Everywhere you look, when you get to the quantum world, it's coded. You know, it's all coded, everything. So that's why they have these simulation theories. Like we're living inside of a video game because everything is just like, it's like you're walking through virtual reality when they look at it on that level. And so what that's telling us is what a lot of these spiritual teachers have been telling us for years, that our brain creates our own reality. But it's not just our brain, it's God, the energy of everything. And our brain is like a Wi-Fi receiver. See, we're able to talk about this now, you know. And so all of the energy in this whole universe is one big network, like an ocean. And I heard this from Aldous Huxley. You know, he was a really smart man that wrote a book called The Doors of Perception in the 1950s. But he was a really famous author from way before that, you know, and somebody just happened to bring him some peyote, mescaline, And so he decided he was going to take this and he was going to analyze it and see what happens. And he talked about this mind at large. There's an ocean of energy out there, but your brain grabs it and pulls it in and turns that ocean into a drip. So you only get what you need to survive. Here, we have to work, we have to eat. If you were always in that state that the plant medicines put you in, you would be looking at the table and all the geometry and all the beauty everywhere, and you would never eat. And that's where we're going. That's the eternal place, when death is removed. And one of my elders told it to me like this, the buffalo is shedding his dew. So I want to get into that. These generational curses are heavy around the world. Everywhere there's been hurt, everywhere there's been things going on, but ever since things happened a couple thousand years ago, a little before that, there's been this energy that's been trying to dominate the whole world, and it's been going into different parts of the world and telling people that were peaceful, that they were evil for using these plants, and that this was against God, and that they had to accept this false Christ, or else they were going to die in hell, or literally they were going to kill you right then, So they forced this into our culture and our society, and after a while, you beat people down. You beat them down. They were murderers, they were genocidal, and this is just truth. I'm not getting into negative energy here, but we have to understand what's going on here. The blood of the righteous that have been slain is crying out for justice, for this to end. So, we are coming to a close here. I don't know how long, I'm just a vessel, and that's something you always need to be aware of, that when Paul and Peter would walk around and tell people these things, they would start worshiping them after a while, because they would get in this strong spirit, and they would look different, and they would be different, and they thought, that's a God, and they would get down, and they would say, no, I'm not God, I'm your brother. This is who God is, the love, I'm just the vessel. So this is how you can tell false teachers when it comes to some other people claiming to be God. God is not going to be here again. Like Jesus said, I won't be somewhere over here or somewhere over there. And people are all scared, whether they're in religion or not, of the second coming of Christ. Well, they think that there's going to be like this big war and this big punishment, this big battle, and it's all, they got to prepare for it and do all these things. And man, we are the second coming of Christ. We are waking up. And so this energy of God's love is like flowing through this electrical network that he designed, that taps into this and that, this electrical network that he designed, and then affects our whole physical body. And then in the natural state, it's entangled with the spirit inside, but the spirit inside is pure light all the way. But because of that stuff that we get caught up in, and that light just keeps it's dimmer and dimming. So some people get to where it almost goes completely out before they break, but they all eventually break. And Christ said that if we're planting seeds, they will bear fruit. They will. There's no question. So we get all depressed and say, these people I've loved so much, they leave us, and we think that they're lost and they're never coming back. But they're coming back. Or they wouldn't even be here listening to us talk, because it's all divine synchronicity and timing, all set up in the geometrical and the science. That's why it's so important to understand these mathematics and all this stuff, and that's why I have to go and do this. So anyway,
I said I was going to keep these talks to about 45 minutes, which has been about that. So that's, I guess, what I have to say today. But we'll be back here in 2 weeks, and we're going to do this every 2 weeks. Now, I have to say that I have to do some trips that might keep me away a few times before now and the end of the year. I have to go do these things. It's just what I have to do to see elders and get things in order. So if I can't be here, they're still going to come. You know, my wife will be here, and the band, they're going to set up a band in a few minutes and play too. So, you know, I want everybody to just be community, you know, and learn how to be with each other in that love, and just try to just live in that space and be outside of time. That's something you have to do. You have to leave time behind. And you have to just take your time and pay attention no matter what you're doing. And you'll get there at the right time. But if you get anxious and you run around trying to hurry up and make it happen, you're probably going to be late because you're messing with me. You know? Anyway, so thank you guys for being here. You know.